The one thing I hate about my setup is that I can't see more of it. Because when you add a keyboard and a mouse pad, now I can't see my awesome GPU collection. Before you get angry in the comments, do keep in mind that while I do have one RX 480 in here, it's dead, and pretty much all the others here have the latest drivers back from the Windows XP era. Now there does also happen to be a GameCube motherboard in here, and I do also have a PhysX card, but apart from that, it's all old silicon here that wasn't really going to get used anyway. At first I thought about pouring resin over the top of this and making it more permanent, but these little 3D printed stands are actually enough to take the full weight of this 32-inch monitor, plus the keyboard, my arms, and whatever else. And on the other side of my office, we have this wall of 3D printer filament. This is about a third of my supply, but this is one of every color that I have in stock, plus any unfinished spools. And I did promise RepRapper I'd mention it once I had it installed, but on the front edge of the plexiglass here, I used their silk green to 3D print those mounts, and they hold up well. And thanks to 3D printing on glass, you can actually see I've got kind of a mirror finish on that front edge. I'm not picky when it comes to peripherals. I've had mechanical keyboards, a few of them, but I keep coming back to the Corsair K55, non-mechanical. For one thing, it is a bit quieter than most mechanicals. And one of the things I like most about it is that I don't have to install any software to make it run. For instance, I can just hit record, the key I want, type the macro, hit stop recording, and then every time I press it, it types in the number. Super useful if I'm doing a lot of 3D printing with a lot of measurements that are the same. I don't have to memorize what all the different dimensions are to keep reusing. I can save 6 different dimensions and have it type the measurements out in inches, millimeters, or whatever else I need it to. Because this house has gas heat, I don't really need to do mining in the winter anymore. So I've got some of these pieces of mining frames, and I'm trying to work out a system of different devices and adapters that I can hook into these so that I can hold a bunch of flash drives. Got another piece here that I need to adapt, and this will just be kind of like a holder for all the little things I need, like maybe that micrometer as well. Coming up to this wall here, I have a Raspberry Pi that has a power over Ethernet hat on it. I generally don't run the fan on it because it does get loud, and honestly it really doesn't use that much power. It happens to be a Raspberry Pi 4 just for the USB 3 connectivity. This purple Micro Center 256 gig drive is painfully slow, so I've got this faster SanDisk 64 gig that I'm pretty happy with. And of course, I can access anything I need over the NAS as well. I'm using an external digital to analog converter here. You can think of that like your sound card. I have the Raspberry Pi as well as the computer, both of their audio outs coming here to this switch. And I can switch inputs there. It then loops here to the output selector, and I can send that to speakers or the headphones. The cable management is definitely not final yet. Think of this setup as like 90% complete. Up here I have another power over Ethernet adapter for this Raspberry Pi 4, which is overclocked. And this is essentially my desktop Raspberry Pi. If we keep going further left, we can see my main machine here. It has a 3900X and a 2080 Super. And then I have these, instead of using a vertical GPU over here, what I've got are a couple of USB 2 adapters so that I've got extra USB 2 ports. This is a 10 gig Ethernet adapter and some more USB 3 ports down there. The brackets that hold up that shelf are of course 3D printed. And let me talk you through this here. This is a KVM. I can change what my mouse and keyboard are plugged into with the press of a button.
To give you guys an idea of just how easy it is to make all these 3D printed adapters, let me show you the KVM mounts. Enter in the depth I wanted, as well as just make it a couple millimeters thick, and enter the height that I needed. Then I take the top and bottom faces and extrude them just a few millimeters. This also gives me an extra segment that I can then re-extrude from here, giving me the bottom surface for it to attach to, and the top surface where it's going to attach into the shelf. Thanks to 3ds Max and using a cone, I can create my own countersunk holes. Just make a cone, and then extrude the top and bottom. And then using the side view, I can orient this about where I want it height-wise. Once I've got one in position, go ahead and make a couple more copies. And if I want to get extra fancy, I can start rounding some of these edges with the chamfer tool. Once my edges are sufficiently rounded, I then make a copy of everything before I start doing the adding and subtracting. Next up, I pro-boolean out those screw holes, and now I have my finished object. Rotate it onto its side to make it easier for 3D printing. Bring it into Cura, save the G-code, and upload it to the printer.
Now my computer is using DisplayPort to get to the monitor, but that Raspberry Pi and a couple other Linux machines are all using HDMI, so if I switch to HDMI on the monitor, this will also control what I'm seeing on screen. Over here is just a bulk USB charger, and then this is one of the reasons why I added USB ports to the computer, so that I can just grab a USB cable down to whatever device I need, or just put that thing away until I need it. I do have a Blu-ray drive because I rip my Blu-rays and I want the fastest machine to be able to compress it. I will often leave Focusrite in the corner if I just need to keep some quick notes, but when it comes to keeping track of video ideas, I do have all these 3D printed note card holders. Now, this used to be an open doorway with no door that went straight to the master bathroom. You can think of this room I'm in like the Vanity, but we've walled it and doored it off. That's all sealed around the edges. Now that's my wall of keeping track of videos that I don't have time to make. Coming in from the server room, I've got a 10 gig line and 4 gigabit power over Ethernets, one of which is powering this hotspot so that whenever I record footage on my phone, like for this video, for instance, it can upload at 50 megabytes a second, as opposed to just having the one hotspot in the living room where I got 5 megabytes per second from back here. I've got 4 smart bulbs in that 8 bulb fixture. They are dimmable and app controllable, which is one of the reasons why I have a wall-mounted BlackBerry right there so that I can control the lights. Because quite honestly, I leave them down at 1% whenever I'm using the computer, but if I need a bunch of light to record and show off all this, then I'll crank it up to max. One of the other nice things about this shelf is that it cuts down on glare. One other random thing I'll mention before ending the video is that over here, that is for holding a sheet of paper. So if I take a bunch of measurements or dimensions and some rough plans for a 3D printed design, I can just chuck that paper in that holder and quickly look over between that and 3ds Max to design whatever it is I need. This setup is by no means complete, but I'm pretty happy with where it's headed. There's really not that much more to do besides cable management and maybe have a second desktop up on top of that shelf, but apart from that, I think it's just about there. If you have any more suggestions of things I could add to this setup, please let me know in the comments down below. I already know there's going to be some people who tell me exactly what they don't like about it, but let's be constructive with that criticism. I know it's hard, it is the internet, but do try.